Welcome everybody. It's great to have you join us. We are continuing our urban parking system modeling experience in Enterprise Architect. My name's Scott Hebbard. I'm joined by Stephen Maguire, and we're continuing to look at our business process modeling and notation series. And in particular, we're going to be looking at the level 2 model process. So welcome, Stephen. And hopefully you can show us how we can drill down a little bit further and create that next level of business process.
Thanks for the introduction, Scott, and delighted to be here talking about this very important type of models, the business process models that are describing what is currently going on in your business and how the activities are performed and the data that's consumed and created. And also they can be used for looking at future states or target states and what an organization would want to do from an aspirational point of view to be competitive in their marketplace or to move their organization to the next level. As always, we start by looking at our perspective, which we set from the top right-hand corner of the application. And Scott, I've been working on the earlier models this morning, which were the business process elements and also the level 1 diagrams. Let's have a look at that and how we set the perspective. We simply go into the tool, the perspective sets listed there. We go into business modeling and we can see that we've already set our BPMN perspective there. So let's have a look at this. As always, the builder page pops up and we get this very useful set of patterns which we can inject into our models. But I'm going to close that, Scott, and do things from first principles. I encourage people to learn how to do things from first principles and then by all means return to this and get the productivity gains that you will have when you use these starter models. So I'll close the page and let's have a recap where we are. So we've been doing some process modeling and it fits under this heading here in the browser, the package called business models. And if you look at this, we've got a number of things. I'm going to move this one up using the toolbar. The business case is kind of a higher level thing than our business processes. So I can just easily use the arrow key on the browser toolbar, move that up. Now we've got our business processes. So again, I'm going to move the business processes underneath the other diagrams there, or other packages there. They're kind of a slightly lower thing in a way than the diagrams, the collaboration diagram, the conversation diagram, the choreography diagram. So just a very quick recap on that, Scott. I'm going to open up one of these diagrams here and show you the kind of thing that we've described as part of that. This relates to the business processes in a way. We've got our choreography diagram there, and we've got a number of other things. We've got our conversation and collaboration diagram there. So let's have just a very quick look at that one as well. And you can see that we're describing the interactions between a motorist and the city council, the operations and the dispute resolution team. So that's just a bit of context of the use of BPMN outside the question of business processes. But we're going to set our focus now onto the business processes. And in the previous videos, we've done a couple of other diagrams. Let's have a quick look at those. So we can launch this diagram here from this icon in the project browser called business processes. And you can see that we have a number of business processes. I'm going to tuck the toolbox away for a minute. We don't need that right at the moment. And you can see the diagram now in its entirety. So this was the start of the business process modeling. And we started with these elements called business processes, kind of the highest level things that are going on in your organization. And typically any organization, no matter how large it is probably only going to have, 5, 6 or 7 of these. You don't want there to be, lots and lots of these. If you have a tendency that there are lots of them, then collapse them down and abstract above that level. We talked about the connection between some of these processes and the value chain. So again, I'm going to right mouse click on this and say, let's find the connection there. And in all diagrams, it's in the value chain there. And we can see that connection to the firm infrastructure, which is a supporting activity in the value chain. I'll close that for a minute now and start our journey. So that was a little bit of background, a little bit of context, if you like. The thing that we noticed in previous videos was the fact that there's a little icon in the bottom corner of this element. In fact, it's on all of the elements except for the value chain ones. If I select this element, and you can see on the right-hand side, a number of little icons pop up. The bottom one here allows me to get a quick view of that diagram. So I click on that, and that pops up in a little window, pops up the diagram that is below that manage parking reservations business process. And that's, called business process manage reservations diagram. So what we're going to do is actually drill down to that diagram. That just gives us a preview there, popped up in that window, but I can drill down by double clicking on that. Now I end up with, I've actually got that diagram open, and you can see that it's a relatively simple business process diagram. No gateways involved, just 3 processes: make reservations, monitor reservations, and purge reservations. And we've got a connection to a motorist profile, and you can see that that is an input into the make reservation process. And if we look at the notes on this element, and again, Scott always encouraging people to be putting notes in. This initial activity allows motorists to create a new parking reservation using their profile information, including zone and level preferences. So we can see that in the connection between the data object, the BPMN data object, and the class model element here from the UML. You can see it's got a name, a date of birth, an address, zone preference, and level preference. And the level preference would apply to the facilities or the infrastructure in part of the council of, multi-level car parks that are used for particular events around stadiums and, other infrastructure. So let's continue this story. So how do we get down to another level? When we created the previous diagram, it created the hierarchy for us. So if you look up at the Manage Reservations tab here, you can see there's a little arrow to the right of that, and that's a backtracking arrow. I can click on that and get back to that Manage Parking Reservations. Now, when we created that business process, if you've looked at that video, and I encourage you to go back and look at it if you haven't, it created this diagram for us. But now going down levels, we have to do a little bit of telling Enterprise Architect what we want to do. So let's take this particular activity, the Manage Reservations activity, down to another level. And we can do that by right mouse clicking on it, bringing up the context menu, new child diagram, and we've got a number of options there. We want a composite structure diagram, saying that it's a hierarchical diagram. So we click on that, and Enterprise Architect changes, you see, and it's got a little icon now, and it's got the
preview option now as well, I see.
Yeah, that's from the BPMN language, this little plus button. It's saying that it's no longer a task, and if we were to look at this element, we can say that this is no longer a task anymore, but it's actually a sub-process. So that allows us to convert it from a task into a sub-process. But you're right, Enterprise Architect has provided this little icon here when we select it, showing us that there's a diagram there. So business process make reservation. So that's what the diagram we want to get to, but it's blank now. And what Enterprise Architect has done under the hood is created the drill down mechanism for us. So if we double click on this element now, we come to a blank diagram, the beginning of our next level in the hierarchy. And again, you can see that the diagram, even though it's empty, has got a little arrow on the diagram tab, indicating that we can get back to the next level. Without doing anything on this diagram, let's just make sure that we can get back to where we came from. There we are. We're back on the previous diagram, and look, we've got an arrow again on this diagram tab, and we can click on that and get back. So it's a drill up and drill down. So let's have a look at that from here again, drilling down, and we're on our blank page. So let's make a start on our level 2 diagram. I tucked away the toolbox earlier in the video. I'm just going to bring that out using the chevron again.
If you ever accidentally lose your toolbox, is it easy to get back?
Yeah, Scott, great question. And that comes up, people suddenly lose their toolbox by closing it or something. Let's just close it and see what happens. I'm just going to completely close it. Now I don't have a toolbox. I could use my chevron to get back out again, but if you didn't know that chevron did that, you can always go to the start ribbon, and we can go to these different items here in the All Windows panel, and I can look at this one here, and they're grouped into Explore, Create, Tools, and Diagram. And there we have our toolbox. So if I click on that, the
That's
toolbox,
handy to know.
yeah, it is. And I've seen people get quite frustrated, but the tool has got all this magic in it, and being able to hide that toolbox, tuck it away, do what you want. I can even, Scott, stop it from being pinned, and it will find its way over there. And when I, click on the toolbox there, I can bring it back again, but I'm going to pin it back there. So there's lots of different options there, and it's all about, screen real estate. There are a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of information popping up in other windows, but let's make a start onto this diagram, and let's do as we always would, start with a start event, and we'll say it's none. We'll give it a name there, and let's have a look. And we always want to put some notes in here to start this off. So let's do that. We'll put some notes in there, and that's how the process begins. Now, if people remember from the previous video that we can use the quick linker here to simply link out to another element. In this case, we want an activity, sequence flow 2, and we'll call it validate request. So I need to select a task type first, and I'll choose that one, and then validate request. So that's what's going on there. I'll choose another, go quickly here to go. We need to do another activity, and this is an all-important one, Scott. It's a user activity. Check security alerts. So making sure that there's no issues now with a particular infrastructure that might have some security issues with it. So that gets done. We can just simply use the alignment tools there, the spacing there that's giving us indicators that we're at the right location. And let's now go to a gateway, which we haven't done before. So again, the quick linker, I'm going to go out to a gateway. I'm going to choose a gateway from here, sequence flow 2, and it's going to give me the type of gateway that I need. Now, if you're not familiar with business process model and notation, it has a number of different gateways that are very useful, and this goes over and above the decision, the little diamond that you see in some general purpose flowcharting tools. The language is much richer than that. I'm going to use an inclusive gateway, Scott, which allows me to look at doing one or more things at the same time, or any combination of those things at the same time. So I click on that, and the tool puts in a marker there, and I'm going to make this into parking space choice. So what type of parking space do I want? Put a little question mark there to indicate that it's actually something. Yep. It's a question that someone needs to answer, and then I can then go from this gateway into a number of activities again. So I'll just go sequence flow 2, and I'll call this one a user one again, and I'll call it event parking reservation. So we've got a number of different types of parking, and EA will do the work of lining up those connectors, and we'll do another one which is our multi-level parking. Yes, and we'll there are a number of them we'll do. We'll put another activity on there. Again, I can use the quick linker, select the element first, drop it out, activity, sequence flow 2, user, and we've got that done. Use the alignment tool there to create that. So, Scott, that's the basic thing of the next level. The elements that you're putting on are going to be very similar between the levels. You're going to be getting more detail as you go down. As you go down to different levels, you're going to be able to see more gateways and different types of intermediate objects, and perhaps pools and lanes at a lower level. Typically in this level, we're not putting in lanes at level 2. We might start to see pools and lanes, so the swim lanes that people might be familiar with, that indicate who's performing an activity. We could have them at this level, no problem at all, but we'll leave them out at this level. And what I'll get you to do is to perform some of your time travel magic, and I'll finish the diagram and be back with you in a few seconds.
Welcome back, everybody. I've performed a little bit of time traveling and editing magic, and now we have our level 2 diagram completed. And Stephen, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the diagram. I notice there's a little slash there through one of the connectors from the gateway. Can you tell us what that little slash is and how that's used in BPMN?
Yeah, great question, Scott, and very well picked up. That marker on the connector between the inclusive gateway and the event parking reservation is called a default indicator. So the inclusive gateway in business process model and notation allows the flow to occur to any of these elements or a subset of them. So someone could, as part of the parking make reservation activity, could book an event parking reservation and a multi-level parking reservation at the same time, or in fact, all three of those activities are exiting the gateway. But if none are specified, that little indicator is called the default indicator.
So that's the default path.
Yeah, if I click on the connector there, you can see that there are a whole lot of different properties underneath the underneath here under the sequence flow from BPMN 2.0, and there's one here called the condition type, and that's been set to default. So that's saying that is the default one that we'll go to. So if nothing else has been specified, then that's
and is that an EA thing, or is that outlined in the specification?
No, great question, Scott. No, it's part of the specification. Enterprise Architect religiously implements the specification. What Enterprise Architect does do is that it builds facilities, tooling facilities that make the language, working with the language, much easier. And we've seen that with this arrow here on the diagram tab, that's not part of the BPMN spec. That's the tool saying, look, if you want to get back to a previous level, that you can, and we can drill down. The plus sign saying that it's an activity is like, or a sub-process is part of the tool. But the clicking through that's part of the language. This is part of the tool. So the diagram has been finished there, and we can see again how we can, what I call drill up. So I'll look at this diagram, I can drill up and then drill up again, and I end up at this level here now where we're on the manage parking reservations. And again, I can drill down and I can drill down, going down to these different levels. So incredibly powerful tooling, Scott. Very easy to create the diagrams using the quick linker. And once again, I've used a legend here to dynamically color the diagram. So you can see over in the properties window that legend is setting the colors. Now I'll show you that just to show you that there's nothing up my sleeve. I could change the color. Let's do something here, change it to purple there and say save. And you'll see that both the legend in the diagram and also the element have been changed.
Automatically changed, yeah.
But purple's one of my favorite colors, but not particularly useful for this diagram. It's a little bit too bright.
I think green for go makes much more sense from a semantic sense.
I think so too, Scott. So that's the diagram. Just to give a precursor to what we might be doing in a future video is, again, taking some of these things down lower. So we could click on the event parking reservation, and if you've started to follow on with these videos, you'll start to see the pattern. Right mouse click, new child diagram, and let's create a composite structure diagram and take it down to the next level. That's for a future video, Scott, but you can see now the mechanism. And I just want to reiterate that while we're talking about business process model and notation diagrams and using that drill down, it's available on any diagram, pretty much on any element. And we don't have to just follow the chain down. We could actually sort of hyperlink to another diagram in the model that wasn't necessarily part of this hierarchical chain. So lots of options there. The tool's got lots of facilities, and many ways we've only just scratched the surface.
Yes, I think that's certainly the case, but I'm sure there are lots of businesses out there that have some of these business process designs in a Word document or a spreadsheet, and they're a bit of a mess, and it'd be really helpful for them to formalize it and model it and create connections and traceability and add notes so that you can understand how things are connected. And there's just so much depth and richness in each of these diagrams, which you just don't get in a Word document, for example. So I could see many businesses out there finding this quite powerful and quite useful for how they approach business rules. As always, thank you very much for watching the video and for looking at videos on the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. We encourage you to subscribe to get the latest and greatest videos, and hit the bell notification icon. Like, comment, and subscribe. We love hearing your feedback. We love if you have questions, and we love hearing any of your ideas for future videos that you'd like to see. As always, details for Stephen's contact details via LinkedIn are below. So if you have any questions about some of the business process models that you've seen in today's video, please feel free to reach out to Stephen. So thank you as always. Good to see you again, Stephen, and thanks for your expertise in this area. It's greatly appreciated.
Always a pleasure to be sharing, Scott.